Sierra's words, "We are the rhythm." Please join me. We are the rhythm. I was my father's son for 45 years, which made coming to Voice as a woman quite the surprise. To be clear, I have had ovaries all my life. I cherish that I have them still. But ovaries do not a woman make. In my family of the brothers, my father and his brothers, you got heard and seen by attending to what they were interested in. So I learned how to be interested in what they were interested in, and to achieve and to be right, supported by the appropriate authorities. So in my family, I was the son and nephew, the ugly duckling daughter, who learned to speak as the men do, and loved it, was good at it. So coming to Voice as a woman, yes, I've learned to hold my words in the establishment worlds that my family values: church, academy, family, civic responsibility. But that's not the voice that I want to talk about. Those were the tunes that I knew from birth, but the voice that I want to talk about, this voice happens to you. If you're lucky, it finds you. But so many of us women dancing to the security tunes of the men in our lives, our fiercely gifted voices never happen to us at all, much to the world's detriment. So my voice story begins with rage, as all my best spiritual stories do. A faculty meeting at the seminary went awry. I don't even remember what set me off. But by the time I got home, I was fully enraged. I went upstairs, pounding into Oracle Google, as we call her, women and writing, because those were two things I knew I needed more of in my life. Up popped Women Writing for a Change, a non-traditional writing school for women and men founded by Mary Pierce Brosmer in Cincinnati in 1991, with a fierce vision for the conscious feminine. An 8-week seminar class, circle class, was starting in 2 weeks, and I signed up on the spot. And I landed at home in a circle of writing women in which I felt completely at home, that I'd known before, but also that I had never experienced before. So the May evening, when my voice came to me in my body, May of 2012, that was a final ritual that we do, a public read-around, where writers bring a polished piece to offer with an audience set to receive and listen. Now, this was uneventful for me. I brought a staid poem that I had written. I'd walked the lines of charming moderation for decades by now. But for some reason, an entirely private blog post, I put it in my file. I had no idea why this was coming with me. There was no way in hell I was going to share that with a room full of strangers, and even my writing sisters. No, the staid poem was definitely the way to go. So now you know how the story ends. When I heard those women reading their words, bold, bodacious, gut-wrenching, poignant, hilarious, universal, I walked up to the podium with that blog piece, with this blog piece. My name is Lisa. Running scarred, scared, and sacred. I was running for my life, 1 year into new jobs, a new home in the Midwest, a seasoned but young marriage with many decisions of life pending. The more deeply I felt, the longer and faster I ran, not unlike a horse increasingly frightened by a riderless wagon hitched behind her. I entered the Marian Grotto close to my home, a running Protestant, reined in close to a blessed mother. I could not outrun this. I loved my husband. I yearned for him, but my body was being drawn to her, a sacred friend who was a woman I'd gotten to know well, but also something or someone more. We met at the grotto the next day, my friend and I. I'm not sure how to begin. I began. At the very least, we cannot bathe as sacred that which is not. Her eyes softened. She smiled. I was thinking about you the other day, she said. An impish tone entered into her voice, a gentle, expansive warmth. It feels like we are one already somehow. Is not that wonderful? She touched my hand, covering it with her own. All of me felt it at once, a sensate warmth and easing of weight, opening light. Early childhood returned. There was no shame in my body, none. Even if it was for just that moment, I realized I would know for the rest of my life. The old, dusty language of my parents' religion had a feeling. Sanctification could be sensed. When opened, in the chaste touch of her hand, the fragrance of erotic love between women overpowered all shame. So then I read the rest of it, pausing for moments when the tears forced me to. A voice I had never known was taking the lead in a dance that I did not know. She was speaking a woman's experience, my experience, regardless of how it was going to be received. For the first time in my body, I experienced a she voice who valued me, my feeling, more than any other authority in the room. So then we sat down, my voice and me, and my body was shaking uncontrollably. The listeners mirrored my words back to me, as well as all the other women who had spoken that night, and the room applauded all of us. So you might ask, out of the speaking engagements that I've been involved in over the years, what made the difference in this one? Well, one, I was just on the cusp of strong enough to face awakening as a woman in a world very dangerous for women. But two, I had landed in an intentional circle way community with practices that are primarily receptive, not prescriptive. Invitation, not obligation. Presume goodwill in all things. Each voice matters. A human community gathered to listen deeply, not advocate, dispute, defend, discuss. Listen. Now, I, nor anyone in my family, knew the dance to this music, the music of women holding space for women to speak, to heal, to lead as women. And I know that voices can happen now in our bodies when there are conscious containers that can hold, because can hold what I now call the emergence or the aftermath. Because I was not remotely prepared for what was going to erupt within me. No one in my life was ready for what came next. I was furious to have been denied access to this voice in my body for 45 years. To have willingly shouldered the shame and the blame that unconscious religious traditions have placed upon the bodies of women, not only for my 45 years, but for centuries. To finally know that this fierce love I have for women and women's voices is nothing to be ashamed of, I had to feel it all. Gut-wrenching rage. All the grief refused by my ancestors and myself. Uncertainty as my life went into free fall. When you wake up as the woman that you've always been, but in this world where all you have are the influential categories and judgments of powerful men, you are pissed. And it was tough. for years, and it was fabulously abundant for years. I had to learn how to be in a life that was no more because of her in my body on the loose. Relationships ruptured. Periods of no contact were requested by people who said they loved me. And many women at this point do get abandoned in their lives by those who are unwilling or unable to receive them in their wholeness. I was fortunate, even blessed, because I was held by multiple circles of women, and one spiritual friendship in particular, red tent circles, wild heart circles, women writing for a change circles, spiritual direction peer group circles. My husband chose to stay and transform with me. So I was fortunate. My she voice, she refined in her strength and in her range. Begrudgingly, my family began to return. They began to honor my experience, different from their own, and now my she voice honors them by speaking a little less softly, but with also a lot less rage. So what scars do you have in your body that you don't even know you have? I didn't know. I didn't think of it that way. And where are you most scared? Do you have safe places that are round and awakening and conscious to face that fear? Because a new old sacred waits for us all there, in our bodies, in voice. And it is that sacred that allows me to hold all of this deeply within me and within anyone who is in front of me, like all of you. The journey in is different for every woman, for every human being, but this is mine. Being my father's son protected me for 45 years from a world very dangerous for women. Just choose your statistic, especially if you're a woman of color. That is exponentially more dangerous, which I have learned because of women of color who've had their voices happen to them in their bodies, and they're speaking into the ignorances and the erupting traumas of our day. My family offered me everything that it had in love until I was finally strong enough. And actually, yes, and it was finally strong enough for me to awaken to this world as a woman and to begin to participate in changing it. So my voice has gotten me really interested in the numb places, the scars. And you might think, well, where do I find, what is that, how, if it's numb, I can't feel it. So fear is your friend in this. And so pay attention, where are you most scared and how do you feel it in your body? Where is it in your body? And do you have places that are round and conscious and awakening? Don't do this work if they're triangular, have somebody speaking to you while everybody listens. Don't try the deep work unless you have round, conscious, awakening containers. Because the new sacred that's waiting, it's in all of us. It's not going to be my wisdom tradition. It's not going to be your wisdom tradition where we try to make some ambivalent compromise between them. No, it's going to be when we learn to gather in small communities face to face and hear the stories that need to be told, the ones that we don't want to hear, that we're scared of hearing because it's going to hurt. We especially need to hear those. This new sacred is waiting in all of us, a restorative wisdom that restores each of us and all of us. She is waiting for us and eager to meet us. Thank you.